Hello, everyone. How are you? How are you? How are you? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. For those of you that are listening in on my podcast, Fundable by Design, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting. For those of you that are listening on my YouTube channel, thank you so very much for being a part of this community. Please subscribe, please like, please share, and comment as well. Tonight, I want to talk about something that is really, really, really important. And I want to challenge the way that you think about yourself. Okay. I want to challenge the way that you think about yourself as a nonprofit leader, as a person who has started a nonprofit organization and you are overseeing a program that is important. I want to challenge the way you think about yourself, not your nonprofit organization, not your board, not your fundraising. I want to challenge the way that you think about yourself. Because I believe that one of the biggest reasons nonprofit organizations struggle isn't because the leaders lack passion. It's not because you lack passion. It isn't because you don't work hard. It isn't because you don't care. It's because you're leading from the wrong identity. I'm going to say that again. You are a person that works hard. You clearly care. You care about the needs in your community. You care about the people in your community. You care about the things that should be fixed in your community, right? So you're not leading because you don't care. But I challenge you to think about the fact that many of you are leading from the wrong identity. Most of you think of yourself as a person running a program, but that's not the role that you've accepted. Hear me now. You have accepted something much bigger. You have become the CEO of a mission that must be strong enough to outlive you. You're not just a person who delivers a program. You're not just a person who has passion about a program. No, you have become the CEO of a mission that must be strong enough to outlive you. And this is a totally different way of thinking. And I want to show you the difference. Many of you have started your nonprofit organization again because of your passion, your commitment, your interest in a program. Jen, I want to feed the homeless. Jen, I want to help single moms. Jen, I want to do a transitional house. Jen, I want to do a pantry. Jen, I want to start a ministry. Right? That's program work. But the moment that you start your nonprofit organization, you're the CEO. You're the executive director. When you started your organization, what was your dream? What was your dream? You probably dreamed about having a program that was serving your community. You probably dreamed about the work that you were going to do to make a difference, right? What was your dream when you started the organization? You probably didn't dream about financial controls. You probably didn't dream about governance or board development. You probably did not dream about policies or strategic planning. You dreamed about helping people, changing lives, seeing children succeed, helping veterans heal. You probably dreamed about supporting families, ending homelessness. That's what captured your heart, right? So naturally, You began acting like the director of a program. Your primary focus, your primary interest, your primary priority was that program. I got to deliver that program. We got to help these people. Nothing wrong with that. But here's the question: who's building the organization that keeps that program alive? I'm going to say that again for the people in the bushes. While you are acting like a program director, who's building the organization that keeps the program alive? Because programs don't sustain themselves, organizations do. There's a difference between running a program and leading an organization. Let's compare the two. The program founder asks, right? You start the organization and you become the program founder. The program founder asks, who needs help today? How many people did we serve? What supplies do we need? How do we deliver the program? That's the program founder, focused on the program. We need space for the program, Jen. We need somebody to deliver the program, Jen. Jen, we need volunteers for the program. That's the program founder. The organizational leader asks, how will this program exist 10 years from now? Hear me now. The organizational leader asks, who is developing the future for this organization? How are we building donor confidence? How do we diversify revenue streams? How do we reduce dependence on one person? That's the organizational leader. How do we build systems that continue working even when you're not there? Those are different questions. And the different questions produce different organizations. The person that is only focused on the program, Jen, the program, those are the organizations that don't have money. Those are the organizations that are largely supported by the executive director. The organization doesn't have any funding. The organizational leader that says, Jen, my program, Jen, we need materials, we need supplies, Jen, everything that we do goes to the program, Every dollar, the whole dollar goes to the program. Those are the organizations that are struggling financially. Those are the ones that say, Jen, funding is our biggest challenge. Jen, we don't have donors. Jen, we don't have funders. Jen, we don't have supporters. Jen, we don't have board members. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. Why? Because you are the leader that has put your sole priority in the program and not in the organization. The program doesn't raise money. The program does not raise money. The organization raises money. And this is where and why so many of you stay in the weeds. Here's something that I've noticed after 40 years in this work. Many of you spend enormous amounts of time working in the mission, while very little time working the organization. Think about your week. Think about how you spend your week. Think about how you spend your time. How much time is spent serving clients, planning program, buying supplies for the program, returning phone calls, putting out fires, all related to the program, thinking about who's going to run the program, thinking about what the program needs, spending your money on the program. Now compare that to the time spent developing your board, building donor relations, reviewing financial reports, improving your fundraising systems, training leaders, creating partnerships. How much time are you spending every week on program versus how much time are you spending developing the organization? Those are the activities that determine whether your organizations become sustainable or not. And yet those things related to your organization are the things that get put to the side. Those things that get pushed back, postponed. We'll do it later. And as a result, now you're online saying, Jen, how do I find donors? How do I find funders? How do I find supporters? How do I get partners? How do I get board members? Why? Because the things that are needed to build the organization, which takes care of all of that, has been postponed. And then you become the only person that the organization depends on. Let me ask you a difficult question. If you disappeared for 90 days, would your nonprofit organization continue operating? Would fundraising continue? Would board meetings continue? Would volunteers know what to do? Would donors hear from the organization? Would financial reports be completed? Would someone else make strategic decisions? If you were not in place, would the program come to a halt? If you stopped giving to the organization, would the organization be able to sustain itself? If the answer to that is no, you haven't built an organization. You've built dependence. You've built dependence. That organization depends only on you. And that's not a criticism. It's a diagnosis. And diagnoses are valuable because they tell you what needs to change. What needs to change? The truth is this. Most of you think that your job is to serve the people in your program, and that is part of it. But your first responsibility is something even greater. Your first responsibility is to build an organization capable of serving people consistently, responsibly, and sustainably. Your job as the CEO, your job as the executive director, your job as the president, whatever you call yourself, your job is to build trust, is to build leadership, it's to build governance, it's to build systems. Your job is to build a culture within the organization that understands the importance of the work and why this work matters. Your job is financial stewardship, fundraising infrastructure, partnerships. Because every one of those protects the mission. You're not just delivering services, you're building a sustainable organization. Imagine it done right. Imagine it done right. Imagine it done right. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your nonprofit organization 5 years from now. 5 years from now. You have board members that are prepared. Fundraising isn't an emergency. Donors stay connected to your organization and give more than one time. Your community trusts your organization. Policies are written and followed. Staff understands expectations. Your program is not only evaluated and measured, but your program is proven through the evaluation and the measurement that it works. Community partners refer people to you confidently. You aren't exhausted. You have enough money coming into the organization to pay yourself and to pay salaries. Why? Because the organization isn't resting on one person's shoulders anymore. It's resting on structure. The organization is resting on the structure of sustainability. That's leadership. That's leadership. I want to ask you one final question. When people remember your organization, what do you want them to remember? Do you want them to say, you know what? Jennifer worked real hard. Or do you want them to say, Jennifer built an organization that continued changing lives long after she retired? Do you want them to say that you worked hard? Or do you want them to say that you built an organization that continues to change and transform and benefit your community long after you retire? Those are two different legacies. One celebrates sacrifice. Jen, we did everything. Jen, I paid for everything. Jen, I ran this organization 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 9 years more, all by myself. I worked all by myself, Jen. We didn't have any donors. We didn't have any funders. We didn't have any board members. We didn't have any supporters. I did everything by myself, Jen. I funded it by myself. I did everything. I ran the program. I did the board. I did everything by myself, Jen. Many of you enjoy celebrating sacrifice. The other celebrates stewardship. And I believe stewardship is a much higher calling. Your donors, your funders, your supporters, your contributors, they're not donating because you worked hard. They're donating, they're giving, they're investing in the organization that they trust and believe is sustainable, that it's not relying only on you, that your program and your mission will continue and can continue beyond you. Listen, your program has a framework. You know the framework of your program. This is what we do. These are the activities that we do. This is who we serve. These are the materials. These are supplies. This is how long the program runs. This is how we identify the people who are going to be in our program. These are the needs of the people in our program. You have a very clear framework of how the program works. But what you're missing is the framework of the organization. and how the organization works. The organization raises money. The organizations develop relationships. The organization has the leadership, has the plan, has the strategy, has the system, has the tool to bring in the cash flow to pay the expenses of that program. But you don't know the framework of the organization because that's not taught. You weren't taught that. So now you're saying, I don't know. I don't know how to raise money, Jen. I don't know how to get donors. I don't know how to get funders. I don't know where money comes from. I don't know how to get a grant, Jen. I don't know. I don't know how to put together a fundraising plan. No, Jen, we don't have a plan or a structure to raise money. That's all organizational framework. And because that is missing, you're stuck. Now you don't have any money. Now you are paying for everything and the organization is not raising any money. Why? Because you don't have the framework of the organization. I understand that for many of you, you've never worked in a nonprofit. You've never started a nonprofit. You've never fundraised for a nonprofit. You've never developed a nonprofit. And it shows because now your board can't help you. You have board members in a seat, but they're not developed to help you raise money. And now the biggest thing is, Jen, they're not helping me. Jen, my board's not engaged. Why are they not engaged? Why are they not engaged? Why can't they help you raise money? I believe it's because you don't know how to raise money. And if you, who started the organization, don't know how to raise money, then the organization that you started does not have a framework, does not have a plan, does not have the system, does not have the strategy to raise money. If you don't know where donors come from, how to get sponsors, how to get funding, then that means the organization does not have the framework, does not have the plan, does not have the system, does not have the structure to get those things. And now you can't equip the board, you can't assist the board, you can't give the board or develop the board what they need to help the organization because the organization doesn't have it. Because you're so busy running the program. But you don't know how to run the organization. And because of that, you have not made the transition from managing a program to building your organization. And without the organization, you're not going to have any money. The money goes to the organization. Fundraising goes to the organization. Cash flow comes through the organization. If you say, Jen, I don't know how to do that, then the organization doesn't have that. I don't know how to raise money, Jen. I don't know how to get board members. I don't know how to do the budget. Then the organization does not have the framework to have money. That's why funding is your biggest challenge. Jen, we don't have any donors. Jen, we don't have any funders. Jen, we don't have any supporters. Jen, how do I get funding? Jen, how do I find donors? Jen, how do I get a grant? Jen, how do I get help? Jen, how do I find? That's because you don't know. Not because you don't know. You just don't know what you don't know. Who taught you? Who taught you how to do it? Who taught you? Well, then you can't do what you haven't been taught how to do. Listen, I want to challenge your thinking because money is not your problem. Money's not your problem. The problem is when you started your nonprofit organization, your priority and your focus was the program. Jen, I started my nonprofit to help single moms. Jen, I started my nonprofit to do a transitional house. Jen, I started my nonprofit to help young people. Jen, I started my nonprofit to mentor youth. Jen, I started my nonprofit to give away backpacks. Jen, I started my nonprofit to do an after school program. Jen, I started my nonprofit to pass out school uniforms. You have been prioritizing that program, and the program and the organization are two different things. You have the framework for the program. You don't have the framework for the organization. Now, you know fundraising is what you should do. So you went out and took a fundraising class. You got some information. Then you decided, you know what, I need to learn about grants. So you went over and you did a grant writing class. You got more information. Then you said, I need boards. So then you took a board training class. Then you did, you probably got something around social media or CRMs. So now you've got all this information, but you don't know how it works in the organization. You don't know how it works together. You don't know the framework of how all of these pieces work together. You have pieces. You got pieces, but you don't know how it works together. And because it's not working together, because no one talks about this, no one talks about organizational capacity, no one talks about the systems, the structure, the process of how the organization is supposed to operate. Nobody talks about that. Everybody says, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. Start a nonprofit, you can get funding. So you thought starting meant, I got my paperwork, Jen. How do I get a grant? I got my paperwork, Jen. How do I get donors? I got my paperwork, Jen. How do I get supporters? I got my paperwork, Jen. How do I find board members? And none of those things happen without the framework of the organization. None of them. Not one. And so now you're stuck. Why? Because now your governance, your financial systems, your fundraising plan, your fundraising mechanism, your donor acquisition, your communications, all of those are so disjointed. Again, think about it. How much time are you spending every day, every week on program? And then how much time are you spending on the organizational operation? Because the organization raises the money daily. Many of you didn't know that you had at least 8 streams of revenue because you're paying for everything out of your pocket. You didn't know the organization is supposed to have cash flow from various streams of revenue. You thought you was just going to be a grant because that's what they teach you. So now you're waiting on a grant, but you got other streams of revenue and you're like, I didn't know that, Jen. Well, if you didn't know that you had multiple streams of revenue, then the organization is not operating within a framework to bring in those other streams of revenue. Money's a fruit. At the root of why there's no money, the organization does not have a plan. The organization does not know how. The organization has not prioritized bringing in the money. The organization does not know where the money comes from. And as a result, that program doesn't have enough money. You're paying for everything out of your pocket. There's a gap. There's a gap between paperwork and program. Paperwork and program. What's that gap? The organization. The paperwork created an organization. The organization has the ability, the capacity, the structure, the systems, the strategy to raise the money to pay the expenses of this program. But because this organization wasn't put together, because this organization was not planned, because the organization was not thought about, how do we know? Jen, I started my nonprofit organization. I got my paperwork, Jen. I got my paperwork. And I've had my nonprofit organization, Jen, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 9 years more. But we don't have any donors. We don't have any supporters. We don't have any sponsors. We don't have any partners. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my own pocket. The organization is not bringing in any money. And then my question is, well, where did you think money was going to come from when you started it? How was the organization positioned to raise the money? And it's crickets. I didn't think about that, Jen. Because that's not what you were taught. You were told, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. And so you think my paperwork is going to get me the grant. No, it's not. It's the organization that gets the grant. The organization's structure, the organization's ability to sustain itself, the organization's financial management, the organization's governance, all of those things that are missing in the gap pertaining to organizational structure is why you don't have any money. Because when you got your paperwork to start this program, you never learned about how do I put that organization together to sustain the program. Who taught you that? Who told you? No one? Well, again, you don't know what you don't know. And until you put that organization together, there will never be enough money to operate. You'll continue to pay for everything out of your own pocket. And when you run out of money, or because there's not enough money coming in, that program will have to stop. And what's the biggest cost? The people that came to rely on that program. Now that after school program had to close because the organization didn't have money. That pantry no longer is able to serve food and meals. Why? The organization didn't have money. We weren't able to get a grant. Nobody in the organization knew how to do it. Jen, the program outgrew the organization, but we didn't have enough money to hire any help. So we had to scale back the program. Why? Because the organization didn't have any money. I want you to think about it. Why does the organization not have any money? You know that there's money, right? You're online looking for grants. I don't know how to get them. You're online looking for partners. I don't know how to get them. You're online looking for donors. I don't know how to get them. If you don't know how to get them, then the organization that you started does not have the plan, does not have the strategy, does not have the systems to get the money. It's impossible. That's why there's no money, because you were never taught how the organization is to be structured to raise the money. You think it's a grant. I'm going to challenge you that after you spend those grant dollars, where else does money come from? How are you going to replace that grant money? I don't know, Jen. I hadn't thought about it. I didn't have a plan for it. I don't know how to do that. That's not money. That's an I don't know circumstance. That's not a money issue. And the thing is that you could know. You should know. Every organization operates the same way. After nearly 4 decades in this profession, here's what I know. Communities don't simply need more nonprofit programs. I'm going to say that again. Your community does not need more programs. They need stronger organizations that can sustain programs long term. Your community does not need a program that cannot be sustained long term. Your program needs an organization that knows how to carry the program long term. They need stronger organizations. Programs meet needs for today. Organizations protect tomorrow's opportunities. And your role isn't simply to run a program. Your role is to build an organization worthy of the mission you've been called to lead. That's why I believe capacity creates funding. Even more importantly, capacity creates legacy. Capacity is the knowledge. I know how to raise the money. I know where the money comes from. I know how to communicate with donors. I know how to acquire donors. I know how to retain the donors. I know how to develop my board so that they can help. I know how to communicate and to delegate to everyone who has role and responsibility in this effort. I know how to communicate the importance of our work. That's capacity. Because one day, someone else will sit in the chair that you're sitting in. You started it. But when you retire, the question is, will they inherit a collection of programs or a healthy organization that's prepared to continue changing lives? That's the difference between a founder, a person who started a nonprofit organization, and an organizational builder. And I believe that's exactly the kind of leader this generation of organizations need. I'm going to tell you something that I heard on the news today. Under this current administration, he wants to make a decision that all grant dollars be filtered through his priorities. So organization or grant dollars that are designated for at-risk, people of color, marginalized communities are not going to be the priority of grant dollars. Now, what do you think that's going to mean? That's going to mean that those organizations that have largely relied on government grants are going to be sidelined, which is why I teach you have other streams of revenue. Grants is not your only stream of revenue. Grants should never be your primary stream of revenue. You have 7 other, if not 16 other streams of revenue. But those organizations that don't know how to raise money and they're waiting on a grant, good luck. You're going to need more capacity. You're going to need to know how to get donors, funders, supporters, sponsors. You're going to need to know the other streams of revenue so that your organization can continue to do the work, because the need for our organizations are going to increase. They're not going to decrease. And it's not a program that the community needs. It needs an organization that can support, that can sustain, and that can continue that program. You'll see. You'll see. If there's anything that I've said that made sense, I would say that your best gift to yourself is knowledge. knowledge about how do I raise money, knowledge about how do I build my board, knowledge about how do I develop the systems, the structures, the strategies, the framework to raise the money. Money is not the problem. For those of you that say, Jen, fundraising is hard. Of course it's hard. You don't know how to do it. Of course it's hard. You don't know where to begin. Of course it's hard. You don't know what to say to the donor. Of course it's hard. No one taught you how to do it. Of course it's hard. You're guessing. You're trying to figure it out. Of course that's hard. That's not fundraising. We don't ask for money. We show our value. We show why our mission matters. We're able to communicate what's at stake if the work that we do doesn't happen in our community. We benefit community. We're not just a program. But again, if you don't know that, then you don't know that. And it's hard trying to do something you don't know how to do. I'm here to teach you. I'm here to show you. I'm here to make sure you do it right and you don't have to do it alone. You all have taken on a job and no one's shown you how to do that job. That's why you're stuck. Jen, I started a nonprofit organization, but I've never run an organization. I've never fundraised for an organization. I've never worked in a nonprofit organization. You thought it was a program, and it's not. And because you're trying to do something in the wrong way, then that's hard. That's hard. And I want to show you the right way. I want to show you how it's done and how to get the resources and the funds so that you're not doing it by yourself. We are a community-based organization. We help and improve and benefit our community. We are an asset to our community. We're more than a program. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope the information that I've shared has been helpful. See you next time.